American Chinese food has been around for well over 100 years. Many people have contributed their whole lives to push it forward to where it is today. But there are only a handful of step changes in its development. One of the people responsible for it is T.T. Wang. He single-handedly connected many dots in American Chinese food history during his time in it. In today's episode, I want to show you how. Hi, my name is Christy, and this is the American Chinese Food Show. By the time the New York Times did a big feature on TT in 1975, he was already the major force behind three of the city's best-known restaurants, the Shenli Palace, the Shenli Dynasty, and the Hunan Restaurant. Thanks to the feature by Craig Claiborne, we know that TT was born in Yangzhou in 1928. He started his apprenticeship in a restaurant in Shanghai at the age 11. The climb to become a chef was slow. TT said his principal duties were to keep the kitchen clean, make the chef's bed and draw warm water for his bath. Then he got to make the rice and warm the wine. Only at the end of 5 years, apprentices would graduate to higher things. TT then went from Shanghai to Hong Kong and Taiwan, where he worked in a number of restaurants. In 1952, at the age of 24, he fled to Japan. A pretty standard route for quite a few talented chefs of the time due to the political turbulence back home. The rest of the story is well publicized. He became the chef of the Taiwanese ambassador to the US. When that position ended, he showed up at a restaurant that was originally Cantonese on East 23rd Street in Manhattan called Shenli in the late 1950s, took over the kitchen and improved the menu. He then opened New Shenli in 1962 on the Upper West Side. The next venture was to open a fine dining restaurant, and he asked Michael Tong to be his business partner. Together, they opened Shenli Dynasty on 2nd Avenue at 48th Street in 1965, the first Chinese restaurant to get 4 stars from the New York Times. However, a lot of the details of the beginning of his career were missing. We get a better glimpse of it from the memoir of Cai Mengjian, Nationalist Party's top special service agent. Hollington Tong was appointed by Chiang Kai-shek to go to Japan to be the ambassador. Tong was introduced to the then unemployed chef called Old Wang when he started recruiting for a chef based on 2 criteria: compatibility with his wife and the ability to cook official banquets. Oh, T.T. Wang could cook banquets. A formal 12-course banquet he later demonstrated for the Times included a sauté of duck feet and a soup served with 1 duck tongue embedded and steamed in 1 spoonful of fish mousse for each guest. T.T. Wang got hired officially after a brief trial period. One day the embassy received a notice from the Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs saying that Wang had entered Japan through illegal means from Taiwan and he was to be immediately deported back. If the ambassador wished to retain his services, they requested that he send Wang back to Taiwan and have him return with the proper legal documents. Hollington Tong made that arrangement, and Wang proudly and officially changed his name to Wang Chong Ting on the brand new passport. The story goes when Hollington Tong was appointed to go to Washington, D.C., bringing T.T. Wang, all the Chinese chefs in Tokyo, a couple hundred of them, threw Wang a party. After a few drinks, they decided to take a group photo as a memento. The photo studio prepared a long farewell banner that had the word "Do" that reminded Wang illegally crossing over. He refused to sit for the photo until the studio replaced it with another word. There's one more thing. In Japan, before he landed at the embassy, according to Cecilia Chang, T.T. Wang actually had a brief stay at her restaurant, the Forbidden City in Tokyo. Cai, the top special service agent, continued in his memoir on how a few years later he was invited to visit the embassy in Washington, D.C. and attended a dinner at the Peking restaurant. T.T. Wang was one of the owners there. It was surprising that he became rich after leaving the embassy. Remember the Peking restaurant with the oo soup we talked about in a previous episode? That's the one. T.T. Wang eventually landed in New York City in 1958 at a time when the local culinary landscape was growing wary of traditional Cantonese and even Mandarin cuisines. Restaurateur David Kay opened the Sichuan Taste in Chinatown. It was said to be the first Sichuan restaurant in North America where you could get a full Sichuan menu. T.T. Wang and Michael Tong threw themselves into the friendly rivalry racing to dominate Sichuan cooking with the Shenli restaurants. Guess who T.T.'s competition was? Uncle Lo, another personality previously discussed on this channel. While a lot of this fame was generated by Craig Claiborne at the times, TT was the real deal. According to the press release from the Government Information Office of Taiwan, when the Vice President of Taiwan, Chen Cheng, went to the White House to see JF Kennedy in 1961, the Chinese meal served Western way included shiitake mushroom soup, sweet and sour fish, crispy duck, Shanghainese assorted vegetables, green pepper chicken, Yangzhou fried rice, almond tofu dessert, and a red bean paste pastries. One of the chefs who cooked the meal was T.T. Wang. In 1980, T.T. was kidnapped not far from one of his restaurants. He was blindfolded throughout the one-day ordeal and was frightened beyond words. Wang's family paid a 100,000 ransom, about 400k today, for his release, while the police questioned more than 150 Chinese gang members, including the Hong Kong kids and the Ghost Shadows. No arrests were made. T.T. passed away at the age of 55 3 years later. The obituary says, although he had been ill for a considerable time, he continued to visit his kitchens in the past few months with all the energies that his body would allow. I wouldn't expect less from the person who changed Chinese food in America. That's it for today's episode. If you like our content, subscribe to the channel. See you soon.